Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything that revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
My name is James.
People's poll doesn't always revolve around Fantasy Premier League.
I was waiting.
Yeah, exactly. But why don't you give everybody a rundown of what the options were on the poll and what won? Because I got 99 problems and 1.2 billion euros is one.
I'm definitely glad that's not the Planet FPL bank account there, I can assure you. There were three options in this week's People's Poll. The vote went out on Monday. The three options were the January transfer window. Why has it been so quiet? Although what we have seen in the last 24 hours, we have seen some actual movement. There have actually been some players who have joined Premier League clubs, one of whom I'd like to praise is Taki Minamino, who's gone from Liverpool to Southampton. And I just want to say that, and I credit one of my patrons, Kieran Cannon, who came up with this, and he said that it's a great move for Minamino. Why? Because the best way of getting in the Liverpool team is going to Southampton. But it has been a very quiet window, and there's a number of reasons why it has been. Obviously, COVID, uncertainty about future. Obviously, a lot of clubs don't want to let people out on loan because of the amount of games they've got. There's a number of reasons why it's been quite quiet. Online race hate has reared its ugly head again over the last week or so. We've seen Axel Tuanzebe, Marcus Rashford, I think Suj James, a few other players have been suffering again with vile online abuse, be it from Twitter, Instagram, other platforms. I was going to challenge that again. I have a very simple solution to it. Not a lot of people like it, but I think everybody should have to have an ID to go on social media personally. And it's a very quick way of eradicating it. I'm pretty sure the social media platforms don't want to go down that route. But the winner of the vote was the debt at Barcelona. You already alluded to a number, Suj. This is not a joke, is it? This is quite catastrophic.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about there's so many moving parts to the crisis at Barcelona. To put it simply, Barcelona are fucked, right royally, and there's just so many different layers to the degrees to which they are up shit creek at the moment. Obviously, the numbers that get bandied about vary, but it's not just about how much debt they've got. It's debt compounded on top of ridiculous player salaries, compounded on top of no players coming through the youth system, compounded on top of no income coming because of COVID, and once all of these things start layering on top of each other, and it's a 6, 7, 8 year kind of build up of shit, then it's a really bad situation. The only way you can liken it is you see a lot now stories of clubs that in the championship or what have you that bet big, and if it doesn't work out, they are screwed. Barcelona it's weird that a big club, and Barcelona by revenue could be considered the biggest in the world. There are years where they make more money incoming than anybody else, but they've kind of sort of bet big and it hasn't worked out. And now they're in a situation where it could implode. And I think we can talk about at the end what will happen next. I think somehow they're going to be all right because of the phrase, they say, right? If you owe the bank £1 million, James, you've got a problem. If you owe the bank £100 million, James, the bank's got a problem. We're in a situation where they owe so much money that the people they owe the money to are going to have to do a deal with them or what have you. Barca are in a ridiculous amount of debt.
Can you clarify the figure that they are in debt?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen numbers bandied about. This is a problem that's been brewing since November when Bartomeu or whatever got kicked out as president. And at the time, there was numbers in that 800 to 900 million euro mark. The talk now is 1.1 to 1.2 billion euros of debt. And the scary thing is that 730 million euros of that debt is short term.
They've got to pay it back by the 30th of June,
the
right?
30th.
Oh my God.
What the fuck? how are you going to pay? Because so their annual receipts from match days and the museum and all that kind of stuff is around about 800 million, 800, 900 million euros a year. So when your debt is more than 1 year's takings, forget about all of your costs. How are you going to pay that back? I think with debt, it's always about how you can service it, right? Because if you had to take round numbers, 100 million of debt, you're paying 5% interest on that every year. You've got to pay 5 million in interest and pay a bit back. So as long as you make 5 million profit, you can afford that debt. What I don't understand here is how they think they're ever going to be able to afford the debt.
Tell me simplistically, how does any business get into a debt like this? And how does it even be allowed? At which point does someone go like, stop, you can't spend money or anything? Like, how does it get to that point? And also, once you've got to that point, how can you possibly get out of it? Because if Barcelona sold every single player they had, which includes Lionel Messi at the moment, because he's out of contract in the summer, that's not going to equate to the amount of money they're in debt. So how do you ever get out of it?
Messi's an interesting conversation all on its own, because you'd have thought that just selling him last summer, the money they would have been able to raise, A, from the transfer fee, and B, what they'd save on salaries, would have gone a long way to trying to fix this financial problem. The problem is that a lot of institutions, banks and the like, hedge funds and all this kind of stuff, they make money by lending people money, right? You look at Deutsche Bank and Donald Trump, for example. There's a lot of controversy around why Deutsche Bank kept lending him money. They make money on interest. So it's in their interest to lend people money. Now, quite often you get these kind of superstar celebrity names, Barcelona Football Club being one of them, where there's a kind of sort of sexiness of being in business with Barcelona, which was similar with Donald Trump back in the day. It's why they lent him money. They didn't look deep enough into it. And you're making a bet that will they be able to make enough money to service this debt? And so people have lent them money. But not only that, you're looking at transfer dealings. So I saw some ridiculous stats on the money that they still owe to other football clubs for players. There, Liverpool, 29 million euros for Coutinho. Doesn't even fucking play there anymore. They owe money for Vidal. Doesn't even play there anymore.
Coutinho is back at Barca now.
Huh? He's back.
He's been back. He was on loan at Bayern, but he's back now, isn't he?
But the number of players that they owe money for that don't play for the club anymore, let alone anything else, is about 100 million. So you can see, right, a bit here, a bit there, a bit here, a bit there. And before you know it, they owe a lot of money.
I think they're owed some money themselves, but it's small. It's small for, I think they're owed about 100. I think they're owed about 125 million from other clubs. But the concerning bit is what you said about this money that they owe for people like Coutinho, Vidal. It comes into in excess of like 200 million or so. Just that. The majority of that has got to be paid by June the 30th. So what happens come June the 30th and they don't?
Nothing. As in, technically, then it's the onus is on whoever is owed the money to then file with the courts to put Barcelona into bankruptcy.
So could you just like strip their assets? You know, like when you get the bailiffs around, they come and take the TV. And
eventually,
stuff.
If they get declared bankrupt,
so
their assets will be stripped. Barcelona's in a funny situation because unlike most football clubs who have an owner, this is democracy at its finest, right? They've got the members and they've got like tens of thousands of people that pay their membership that all own a little small piece of Barcelona. So how that would work would be quite different to any other football club, like Rangers when they went bust, for example.
Barcelona don't owe Man City any money, but if they did, could they just send their lawyers round and the bailiffs and just put Messi in the back of a car?
No. It doesn't quite work like that. You have to appoint a bailiff, and it's their responsibility to be independent, value all the assets, try and get the best deal that they possibly can, and so on and so on. So you wouldn't. There'd be no preferential treatment for the people that are owed more money or less money, or whether you're the company that puts them into liquidation or doesn't. But this debt is mounting, and it's been a problem since 2017, really, but also 2014 when Bartomeu became the president. That it's been built up over time. Like they've spent over €1 billion on players, incoming transfers. €1 billion, James.
I've got it.
Tell me who's done well.
Well, other clubs in a lot of these circumstances, because I mean, they obviously got a huge amount of money for Neymar, which if you strip back and go back 3-4 years or so, whenever Neymar left, this
2017.
The money they got for Neymar's buyout clause, 202 million or whatever it was, plus obviously not having to pay his wages anymore, etc. Listen, we know you're going to need to replace the player, but they then went and spent more than that on Coutinho and Ousmane Dembele.
Exactly.
And it's
just
not really,
those two transfers
I love Coutinho as a footballer, but it's not really worked out. So you've got all that money from Neymar, which could have covered basically. I mean, we'll talk about Messi's salary in a minute. Is something seriously eye-watering, but it could have covered keeping Lionel Messi, for example, and then you bring through other kids from La Masia. Admittedly, La Masia is not producing the productivity line of what it was 15 years or 20 years ago or so.
But why is that as well? You've got to ask that question.
The other point is
Griezmann as well. So they picked up 225 million euros for Neymar. 225 million euros for Neymar. Griezmann, Coutinho, and Dembele with add-ons would be close to 400 million euros.
It's mental.
It's double.
It's crazy.
Dembele spent most of his time injured. Coutinho has hardly played a game where they farmed him off on loan. And Griezmann, in his first season, scored less goals than Thomas Suchek's going to score for West Ham this season. So and when you compound a lot of these decisions on top of each other, it's bad management. You can get lucky and unlucky with transfers, right? Even in the good old days when Barca were doing well, I'm sure they bought a few duffers as well. But it gets hidden in amongst the good players that you buy. When all the players you buy are duffers, suddenly, oh shit, this is a bit of a problem.
When you have a generational thing like your Messi's, Iniestas, Xavi's, Busquets, all coming through the academy over kind of a similar period. I mean, they all went and were part of what many of us consider the greatest club team many of us have ever seen, all came through that system together. I mean, you can't expect that to be replicated ever again. And that's part of the issue in terms of the productivity of talent. But then you've got people like Fati, who's come through the academy system now, and there's great hopes for him. He needs to be part of it now. You need to just kind of lynch it in and say, this guy's going to be part of our future. Someone needs to be brave enough to come out and say, this is the situation. Listen, we ain't going to be spending 150 million on a Coutinho or a Griezmann this summer. I mean, Real Madrid, we'll talk about them a little bit, I think, briefly near the end. But Real Madrid didn't spend a penny last summer.
No, exactly.
And that's because they're in trouble as well, by the way.
Yeah.
But that's the first time they've done that in over 40 years, Real Madrid, not bought a footballer.
It's mad. When Bartomeu, who now is not president, I think Laporte, who used to be president, is probably going to win the election later this year and come back in as the permanent president.
March the 7th has been pushed back to, yeah.
Yeah, he's Messi's mate as well. So they've obviously got a bit of a better relationship.
But they can't keep Messi,
inherited
can they?
the team, well, I don't think they will keep Messi at this summer.
Anyway, God, sorry.
But when the team he inherited, the front six, was Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Neymar, Messi, Suarez. Neymar, Messi, Suarez, in that season alone scored 122 goals, so three of them, right? As a front six.
Not bad.
It's incredible. But what you need to think about is succession planning. I know we've both done a bit of reading and research. How many players have come out of La Masia since 2010 and made it into the Barcelona first team?
Are you talking about permanently or just made debuts?
No, just played. 10 years.
It's got to be in double figures.
No.
Really?
Sergio Roberto.
He's been a good player for them. And
Ansu Fati.
They can't be the only players that's made debut from La Masia in the last 10 years. That's not possible, mate.
There's plenty in the B team, but no regular. No one's into the first team. I'm sure that I'm happy to be
regulars,
correct.
maybe, as in played. I don't know, 40 games corrected. Or something.
But the problem is obviously because of the way that the Spanish system is, and you have a B team, you either register for the B team or register for the A team. So a lot of these younger players are registered with the B team, like Fati, for example. He's only 17 years old. I mean, the guy is a fucking kid at the end of the day. So you can't exactly hang your hopes on a 17-year-old kid. But this is the academy that's brought us PK and Iniesta and Xavi and so on and so on. You reel off the names from 7-8 years ago. You can understand why Barcelona fans are like, you've bought shit players, you fucked up the academy, you've overspent. We can't improve the stadium anymore. Mad. I also read that the average player's salary, is 11 million euros a year. That's 200 grand a week. Now, Messi's going to skew the average massively. But imagine if every player at Spurs, as an average, was 200 grand a week in salary. £200,000 a week.
We might be good. We probably wouldn't be, but we might be.
Incredible as an average. So yeah, it is a big problem that Barca have. Now, Barca have players' salaries. I've seen numbers anywhere between 74, 75 and 81% of income is going on players' salaries. Now, FFP sets a ceiling at 70%. And if you're at 70%, you're already at the fucking bleeding edge of where you need to be. To be at 80 and factor in the highest revenue club in the world, right? It's not like a fucking, I don't know, let's pick a smaller club. Let's pick on Barnsley because I know Rob Pickle listen. 80%, 70% of 80% of Barnsley's income is very different to 70 to 80% of Barcelona's income. It's mental. It's mental. And it's happened over a period of 4 or 5 years, drip bit by bit by bit by bit, that suddenly is now imploding like shit. A big sack of shit.
So in 2017, Lionel Messi signed a new 4-year contract.
Yes.
Presuming, the transfer window is closed, presuming he now plays for Barcelona until June, at least. In that 4-year period, he will have earned 555 million euros from Barcelona. He is basically on £2.5 million a week.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 200,000 average salary. I mean,
he's blowing 10 players.
A lot of the guys are on 10 grand a week, mate, according to that.
Based on the numbers. I find it a little bit. See, the thing with Messi is that he's probably like one of the few players that you'd say is almost worth it because of the commercial stuff that comes with it. And they've probably done some good math on shirt sales and all of the razzmatazz that comes with having Messi. He's probably one of the few players that actually can probably come close to paying back what he's earning, but 10x still feels a little bit ridiculous in terms of 10x even a top player at 200 grand for Messi.
Do you think Lionel Messi makes Barcelona £2.5 million a week?
No.
Oh, well, then he doesn't, then, does he?
No. But he's probably like coming as close as anyone to being in a position to, and he's still obviously performing on the pitch, right? He's still scoring goals, and he's probably their best player. Is almost a given. I mean, it's hard not to be, but
they can't renew his contract on the same. I mean, it's fairly clear, just judging by the overall numbers.
If they do, then they clearly do not give a fuck about financial anything.
Well, no. I mean, and there's a knock-on effect as well in terms of. All right, let's go back a little step here. So, in terms of the actual bankruptcy, does this automatically mean that if they can't start paying the money they owe in June, etc., do they cease to exist? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, what would happen is that if there's Barcelona 1 Limited, that company would be shut down. The assets of Barcelona 1 Limited would have to be sold to Barcelona 2 Limited, and then it would carry on in that way. So Barcelona will still exist as a football club, much in the same way like Berry and whatever else. You just start a new company, you buy the assets and the brand name and the stadium and whatever else you can, and a lot of the debt gets wiped out. But if you saw what happened with Rangers, they had to drop down into the lowest league of the Scottish pyramid or whatever else and work their way back up. You'd think that Barcelona would have to do the same. I don't think they will, primarily because of the politics involved more than anything else. What will happen and what should happen are not going to be the same thing in the Barcelona situation. There's a lot of other funny business been going on behind the scenes as well in terms of the financial fair play and what have you.
We'll come back
a
to
lot of
FFP.
eyebrows raised. Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
There's a couple of cases in Italy which suggest that it probably could happen. Very similar thing happened, obviously not to the scale, but Fiorentina in 2002 had to go down to their 3rd division and change name. And obviously Juventus, there was the match fixing allegation 10 odd years ago or so, and they were thrown down into the third division. And Juventus was near enough the biggest club in Italy in terms of how it's considered politically, should we say. They're called the old lady, aren't they? So, I mean, is there precedence to say, I mean, Real Madrid have a lot of power. In terms of political, would they be happy to get rid of Barcelona and say, I mean, it's not in Real Madrid's interest to lose Barcelona from La Liga. I wouldn't have thought.
No, it makes it much less competitive and much less of an attractive product for TV.
It's more the attractive product of the
right?
league in terms of overseas TV and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But could they get thrown to the third division or something?
Yeah. And so they should. If they have to dissolve or go into bankruptcy or anything along those lines, then they should be thrown down. They should be thrown down the league.
What about if they stay? Are they going to be allowed to play in the Champions League next season?
Probably not. They probably shouldn't be. I mean, how this unravels is going to be very, very interesting. There are people out there that will have the money to bail Barcelona out, but does it then stop being a People's Republic of Barcelona in terms of membership and what have you, and become a privately owned club like pretty much every other football club in Europe? Do we go down that route instead?
They must have plenty of investors. I mean, it sounds simplistic from the outside. I mean, we're talking a huge sum of money. There are individual people in the world who own or are worth this sort of money. Could they just get involved and just wipe it?
Oh, yeah. But I don't think anyone would. Like a billion is a bit much now. We're getting to that stage where buying a football club for 100, 200 million is one thing. Buying it for $1 billion is slightly different. Like maybe the likes of an Amazon or something like that sees it as a commercial partnership. But I think the problem that Barcelona fans have is that what the club stood for is now being taken away from them, and they're losing their identity. And Bartomeu took over in 2014. Obviously, took over because Russell got in a bit of hot water about the Neymar purchase and ended up in jail because of. Has made a lot of changes that they don't feel comfortable with. You know, they did make changes to La Masia. I think they ran a program 360 Masia where they tried to turn it on its head, changing the training regime and the diet and all of this kind of stuff. Hasn't worked, has it? Because no players are being able to come through. They were revamping the new camp. They've had to put it on hold because they got no fucking money. On top of that, you've got something like they used to gift the shirt sponsorship to UNICEF as a charitable thing, right? Took that away and started taking the money from Qatar Airways because they needed the money all of a sudden. All of these little things that were Barcelona don't exist anymore. And so I think they're like, come on, man. And then on top of that, no kids coming through and you're buying players for hundreds of millions of euros and they're crap. You're taking away what the club stands for all of a sudden. And obviously then there's less success on the pitch and it's in a bad situation. When you actually then look under the hood and see the financial shit that they're in on top of that, then it's even worse. How much did you see about the Pjanic Arthur transfer as well?
It's Dodgy as. It's basically, please go into it because one of our patrons, I won't name just in case I shouldn't, kind of flagged this to me last summer in terms of it's really, really dodgy. I mean, basically it sounded like a transfer that was money laundering.
Money laundering, money lending. So Barcelona needed money, and so they sold a player to Juventus in Arthur, right, and bought Pjanic.
Good player as well.
Yeah, but the way the deal was structured, but the thing is, they didn't need Pjanic, and people are like, well, this is for purely footballing reasons. This doesn't seem like a good transfer. But the way it works is we'll sell Arthur to you now. You give us 64 million or 67 million euros, fine. And then we'll buy Pjanic for 82 million or something. So there was a 10 million difference in the transfer fees. But Pjanic's transfer on paper was not to be paid until after the next financial year. So on the paper, it looked like they'd got that much money.
£60 million for for
balance their financial fair play, and then the following year they'll write that deal and get it sorted, and it will work itself out.
But then doesn't it just become
like
a problem
Spurs,
the next year?
Yeah, they're just kicking the problem forward by a year. Now the problem is obviously Bartomeu and his entire board have been kicked out. So what the fuck do you do? They're obviously going to chase him. I think there's no surprise that these guys had an ignominious relationship with the likes of Messi, and then suddenly his contract is leaked to the newspapers. It's like Spurs saying to Manchester United, "Do you know what? We need some money here. We'll sell you Heung-min Son for £60 million, and as part of the deal, next financial year we'll buy Daniel James off you for £50 million back." You're like, well, it just doesn't make sense to logically do that deal and pay 50 million for Dan James and 60 million for Son. Something dodgy is going on. Like, you would raise your eyebrows if that was a deal that was done.
We're supposed to say, let's not compare Pjanic to Daniel James, but
okay,
I know what you're saying. Pjanic has been a very good footballer, actually.
We raised our eyebrows with the Doherty deal, for example, because it just didn't seem right. It was so obvious to people, but the problem is there's nothing you can do about it. Because
no. But I look back on that in hindsight, I just go, look, I got a rubbish right back. It made complete sense.
But no one can do anything with Barca, and so obviously these kind of financial deals have been rumbling in the background. I'm sure they've been robbing Peter to pay Paul and do all sorts of dodgy stuff. I heard a rumor that they've overpaid Neymar by 10 million euros.
Yeah, I've heard that.
How do you overpay someone 10 million euros?
Well, apparently that's going to go to court for them, try and get it back.
I mean, pay packet's a bit big this month. Whoops. Let's just keep it quiet. One
of the damning things that's going on currently, I think, to give you an idea that finally something's triggered at Barcelona, that there is a massive problem, was it's kind of well documented. They're probably going to get Eric Garcia from Manchester City, probably on a free transfer in the summer, and that's what they're going to be limited to. Probably is free transfers. But there was some discussion about buying him now for not a lot of money, basically. And they can't afford the not a lot of money, whatever it would have cost the peanuts to just get him now. There was big arguments amongst the people in charge. And it actually ended up going to Juan Laporta, who was the former president, who's probably going to get voted back in on March the 7th. And it seems like he's had the final say on it. And he said no. Even though he's not in charge, he's gone no, like enough. I think there's a lot of pain coming for Barca. It's something mythical about Barca and Real Madrid and the way they operate. I mean, it was kind of always that way for Real Madrid. It's become very much that way for Barcelona too. Let's be honest, in the Lionel Messi era, where before Messi started playing from, they won one Champions League in their history. Messi's won 4.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the club's gone on to new heights. You mentioned about the turnover of the football club. I think in 1920, they were the first club to break 800 million for turnover. So, I mean, 800 million is not far off the 1.2 billion. Obviously, the problem is, as you said, you got to send 70% of that 800 million has got to go on wages, for example.
Even more, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
And the thing is, right, it's very easy to blame COVID. And sure, Barcelona make a shitload from match days and what have you. 100%. Not only because
tourism's a big deal for them as well.
Yeah,
in terms
of course.
That stadium makes like the museum makes like £1 million a week, roughly.
Yeah, they said 53 million euros a year, just the museum and stadium tours.
That's crazy.
Let alone on top of that, everybody then goes and buys a scarf or a shirt or what have you. It's the 3rd most visited museum in Spain.
Yeah.
That's like the football museum at Wembley or something being the 3rd most visited museum in the UK. Not even the football museum, because that's England, right? It's like Tottenham's museum or Manchester United's museum. It's not going to happen. So tourism for them, it's such a massive attraction, and so you can understand why they are struggling a little bit more because of COVID. But this is a bigger problem than COVID for sure. I mean, the players had to take 70% salary reductions in March last year, so the non-playing staff could get their wages. But even that was like pulling teeth to get an agreement out of the players. And you look back at it now and you're like, come on, man, this is a bigger problem that's brewing than just lack of income because of COVID on match day.
I read that the way they pay their players, and I don't know if this is common practice across Spain, but it's a little bit different to what we consider it done here. So in England, the majority of players are paid monthly. In Spain, or certainly at Barcelona, they're paid twice a year in December and June, most commonly. So they'll get half their annual salary, one go, one whack. And obviously, a lot of the money from December was deferred. It's not been paid yet. So they need to try and sort that out with players. So they owe their players a lot of money as well, on top of the fact they were already taking a massive wage reduction in the first instance. The alarm bells have to be triggering here.
This is a big problem. This is not like, oh, okay, it's got an easy, simple solution. Someone will come and write a check and sort it out. There are multiple problems, layers of financial problems here that require some real work, and something has to come out of it. But I think Barca are in trouble. If you would say to me, will something happen? I can't dictate or predict, politics getting involved and a bailout and UEFA stepping in and anything like that, because of how big Barca is a global brand. But on paper, they are screwed.
This is the sort of shit as well that leads to shitty Super League breakaway talks and stuff like that. Because it has to be a concern here that Barcelona get thrown out the Champions League, and then do they want to go and push through for their own competition and stuff like that? Because they'll need the money.
Manchester City got kicked out and then obviously then back in and all the rest of it, but for much less than this.
Well, that's how it seems, in fairness, as well, right?
Much less. They pissed about, but they managed their pissing about.
Well, their pissing about seemed like allegedly it was maybe a little bit murky. Barcelona's now looks like it's in the mainstream in terms of what's happening. Man City were accused of hiding stuff, basically, right?
Yeah.
But Barcelona's figure is so monumentally huge. I don't understand how business can function like this. I mean, you obviously can, but are they helped massively by the fact that they own the new camp? Is quite important.
Course, yeah. I mean, that could be a big part of it. I think we'll see with Barcelona that players will be sold. High-earning players will be sold. I mean, it's already started, right? They've started offloading certain players and trying to get Suarez off the wage bill and all of that kind of stuff. And they're not going to get the most amount of money back in. But I think it could, in the long term, potentially be good for the club to get back to what it's about, which is bringing young players through, getting La Masia right. It's a little bit of short-term pain, but long-term Barca will still be a big brand and they'll be able to work their way back up.
What's the worst-case scenario here? That they change the name?
There will still be, instead of FC Barcelona, there might be Barcelona FC or something like that. So yeah, it'll just be a new company, starting from scratch in the third, fourth division of Spanish football, whatever it may be. They'll have to sell a bunch of their players, maybe even some other assets if they have, like the stadium. But I think they'll probably try and avoid doing that, and then go from there. What would be a bit difficult to stomach is if certain debts have to start being written off. So if Liverpool now have to only take 10 million of the 29 million and what have you, Liverpool's a big club, they can probably stomach it. But I'm sure there's smaller football clubs that are owed money that need that money from Barcelona and so on.
Could they be in a position, say they owe Liverpool, let's just say 40 million. Could they be in a position where they go, look, forget the money we owe you, just take Coutinho back for no money or something like that?
Yeah. I mean, they could do deals like that, to try and clean everything up. They literally have to make a list of how much money they have due in, how much money they owe, what assets they have, and try and figure out a way of making that balance to zero, or at least a manageable level. And someone cleverer than me and someone good with accounting will probably have to try and figure it out. I didn't realize until we started digging into this for the pod how bad the situation is. It's bad.
Really bad. Is. Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be seriously considering here that Barcelona won't be in the Champions League next year as a serious, strong possibility. Lionel Messi, just looking at the numbers, I mean, there is no common sense that he still plays for that football club next year, or basically unless he plays for free.
Yeah.
as like a goodwill. Thanks for the. I mean, to be honest, if he's made 555 million out of them over the last 4 years, does he need to be paid for if he really wants to stay there? I mean, even PSG or Man City are not going to match that sort of salary, I don't think.
No.
So whatever he does, he's got to take some sort of a pay cut somewhere. And remarkably, it seems like there's still a possibility that once Laporta comes in, that he might take a massive hit and go, I'm going to stay here for a couple more years and then, I don't know, go and finish his career in USA or Qatar or something like that and make more money back, etc. Because Messi makes obviously huge sums of money outside of Barcelona as well in terms of endorsement, sponsorship, the like as well. But there's a strong possibility here that they'll get relegated if they don't sort themselves out soon, and they'll get thrown out the Champions League. I think the Champions League one, I like you. The cynic in me thinks they won't get thrown out of La Liga, but the Champions League one's really interesting to follow over the next couple of months, because on that sort of debt, UEFA have written by laws there's a certain amount of debt that you are allowed. Barcelona should not be in the Champions League as far as I can make out at the moment. Now, I haven't digged into it enough that is it a certain percentage of their turnover? I mean, whatever it is, their debt is bigger than the biggest gross turnover in football history is what Barcelona had in 1920, and their debt exceeds that. I cannot see, with those figures released, how they can be allowed to play in the Champions League. Basically, if they are, again, like we said about City getting off, FFPs, what's the point in it?
Exercise.
There's no point.
We will find out. I mean, the argument as well is right now, to be fair, as a football team, it's irrelevant because Barcelona are not good enough to win the Champions League. There's plenty of teams better than them. So I
don't think they can win it this year.
No. So I mean, whether they're in it or not, they're not going to win it. So it's in a certain extent irrelevant. But yeah, they'll get kicked out. But
what does the Champions League bring you?
Money.
Huge volumes of money. I mean, what did Tottenham made? Was it 80 million just in prize money getting to the Champions League final in 2019? And I think in top of all the TV money, etc., it was 200 million worth was what it worth to Tottenham getting to the Champions League final.
Still second in the table, joint with Real Madrid at the moment.
So. They're 10 points behind Atletico.
Atletico are going to win the league this year.
And Atletico got a game in hand as well. Atletico have only lost once, so... and ironically, Suarez is doing well for Atletico just to rub it in as well. But yeah, it looks like Atletico would be an amazing achievement if they go and win it again, considering the powerhouses of the other two. Just briefly, Suj, do you know the debt of Real Madrid at the moment?
I do not, James.
Outlined by Diario Sport, gross total debt figure at Real Madrid now stands at £901 million.
Wow.
They're next.
Yeah, I mean the ownership
Spanish football
of Real Madrid
just gone boom.
the ownership at Real Madrid is quite different, right? Tied in with the royal family and all the rest of that kind of stuff as well. So I feel like, they probably have more leverage with the banks and the people that they owe money to than potentially Barcelona may have.
Well, I reckon both of them have got some leverage.
But both of them are worth keeping an eye on. Barcelona's the first. Real Madrid, when they release more financial numbers, are definitely going to be one that we're going to be talking about.
Interestingly, though, while we've been in this lockdown period, Real Madrid have not been playing at the Bernabeu. They've been playing at like their B stadium because they've been redeveloping the Bernabeu. They've been putting a new roof over the top of it and everything. It's basically going to shut. Whereas obviously Barcelona have completely halted the work on the new camp. And I think that is a telling indication into where the two clubs are at the moment. Meanwhile, while they're pissing their money up the wall, Atletico are the best team in Spain at the moment.
They are indeed. There we go. There's a little rundown of La Liga. James and I obviously don't watch La Liga religiously. So if you are a Spanish football fan and have anything else to add into the conversation, then we would love it and do appreciate it. Head over to twitter.com, James's account, @PlanetFPL where the podcast will be tweeted and you can jump in the comments below. Fascinated to see what your thoughts are on this subject and how the story unfolds. As James mentioned, March the 7th is when the elections are, when we expect Laporte to be reinstated as president after a 10-year absence. And then we see where Barcelona go from there, James.
If the Garcia deal is anything to read into, there's a chance that he might come back into Barcelona and some common sense might happen, because at the moment there's a lot of lying going on to the football fans at that football club, in terms of even last summer, Neymar's coming back and all that kind of thing. with what? He's obviously not. So stop making promises, because that's a lot of it with presidencies in Spain. Oh yeah, if you vote for me, I'll buy Ronaldinho and this kind of thing. That's always gone on at like Barca and Madrid. But Laporta coming in is important in terms of his relationship with Messi, and he may well come in and go, look, this is the truth. This is what we need to do. And there's going to be some short-term pain. There is a danger here for Barcelona and possibly Real Madrid, who essentially are the two biggest clubs in the world, arguably.
Yeah.
That they are going to fall adrift of clubs like United, City, Liverpool, Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich. There is a real danger in the next 10 years or so they're going to slip behind.
Indeed. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this non-FPL related podcast. We do enjoy doing them. We hope you enjoy listening to them. Game week 22 for FPL does start this evening with Sheffield United, West Brom, Wolves, Arsenal, 6 p.m. kickoffs, 4:30 deadline if you were listening to this before then.
It won't be.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to release it after, are you?
I'm going to go after, yeah.
There we go. Well, the game week's already started, so enjoy.
You've muted yourself.
My mic's gone a bit funny there, James.
I've got you back.
You do the outro. Go on.
I'll do the outro. All right, fine. Sky tomorrow, Thursday, main podcast reviewing the first 9 games of game week 22. Ask James on Friday. Don't ask me about Tottenham's beating by Chelsea, but I suppose I'll probably talk about it anyway. That's it for now. We've got Luke on Sky tomorrow, so that should be a really good podcast.
Indeed. Stay safe wherever you are, our friends. If you want to join us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/planetfpl. But other than that, ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man-child. Barca.